All right, everybody, I've got 5:02. We will call the Plan Commission meeting to order. A roll call, please.
Justin,
Here.
Jan will not be here tonight. David,
Here.
Stephanie will not be here tonight. Richard,
Here.
Crystal,
Here.
and Sonia.
All right, item number 2 is review and approval of minutes from previous meeting.
And this is Crystal. I would move approval of the minutes from the previous meeting with no additions or corrections.
I second.
Right. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Item number 3, public hearing on application for zoning change of property located at 807 Railroad Avenue from B3 to R2. And with that, we'll open the public hearing.
Okay, if you guys remember, we've seen this multiple times. Brian is here again. But this is the process that has to happen. We are getting towards the end of this. I'm sure he's thankful for that. But if you remember, this is the rezoning of the property from the B3 to the R2 residential on Railroad. Nothing has changed in regards to that since he brought it forward when we did the preliminary resolution. Tonight, you will see that he has brought forward the certified survey map, so that's like the next piece of this. If you guys so choose to forward this on to council at the end of the month, then that would be the final version of the zoning change, and he can go about what he needs to do. So unless there's any questions during the public hearing, and if there's any public that has questions.
Yeah, any members of the public wish to speak on the public hearing regarding this item? Any other discussion here? Not, we will go ahead and close the public hearing. And we will move on to item number 4, which is discussion with possible action on rezoning property located at 807 Railroad Avenue from B3 to R2.
So this is where we would basically need a motion if you wanted to continue forward. We do have the certified survey map we'll be discussing on the next one, but if you needed to recollect where that location was.
Sorry, and I was trying to play catch up a little bit here. So this is the property, the entirety of the property in general as it sits today prior to, of course, the CSM that's on the plate. And generally, that CSM is located in this section right there. And again, we talked about it at the last meeting regarding zoning and that this area of town is actually zoned as a B3. When in fact, most of the properties, all the properties around it are residential properties and not light industrial, heavy industrial.
Thank you. Questions? If not, I think we're looking for a motion.
Well, this is Crystal, and I would move that we rezone the property located at 807 Railroad Avenue from B3 to B3 to R2. Sorry.
This is Richard, and I'll second.
Motion at second. Any questions or discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We're moving along so fast, I can't even keep up here. Item number 5, review and approval of certified survey map for 807 Railroad Avenue.
Okay, as part of this whole process, and because he's subdividing the parcel, it was required for him to do a certified survey map of that property. And so this is the map that he was requested to do. Again, it's basically everything we've already talked about in all of the rezoning and everything else. So unless there's questions, and Brian's here regarding that, this is just, if you have questions, you can forward it on to council.
Thanks, Larry. So if nobody has any questions, we are looking for a motion to approve the certified survey map.
This is Crystal. I would move that we approve the certified survey map for 807 Railroad Avenue and forward it on to council.
This is Richard, I'd second that.
I've got a motion, a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Item number 6, progress update on comprehensive planning process.
This item is on here as sort of a standing item for the duration of the comprehensive planning process. I did reach out to Kristen from Redevelopment Resources on updates. not a lot of changes. We just met on the 26th, so less than 2 weeks ago, for an update as well as a conversation with Plan Commission. Really what they're trying to do is push the survey, make a last effort to push the survey. They've gotten good responses from the other two, the non-public schools. So that would be the Waldorf School and the Sonia, help me please. Youth Initiative, thank you, about pushing out the survey to their families. I think that the school district was taking it for a conversation last Thursday to see if they could be allowed to do it. Certainly, we're giving them a little leeway time to get past the referendum election or the election and the referendum question last day. So overall, I just encourage them to continue pushing that with Tom because I think that would really create a bump in it. But again, that survey closes on the 15th of this month, which was the extension period. So other than that, they're just continuing to have stakeholder meetings, trying to get the last few individuals that have been hard to peg down for those stakeholder meetings. And after that, we will have a sort of a planning meeting next Monday. Back from one of our online attendees. All right, there we go. Next steps will really be to sort of nail down the open house, farmers market, and some of our upcoming public participation events. So happy to answer any questions the best that I can on that.
Oh, it's back now. I reset it and it wouldn't work. Sorry. All right. Thanks, Nate. Any other questions regarding the comp plan process? All right, we'll move on to item number 7, which is discussion with possible action regarding development proposals for city-owned property on 321 Southeast Avenue.
So tonight we have updates for the 321 Southeast Avenue property. If you remember, about over a month ago now, we had the first round of proposals came through. There was good public discussion, and we essentially asked that they take the information that they learned at that meeting, the feedback otherwise, and sort of submit an updated proposal if they so wished, or continue to keep their proposal as it were. So what I'd like to do tonight is just invite the 3 groups, I guess we'll call them, that submitted proposals back up, just to kind of share the changes that they've made. All of the proposals were submitted to you as part of your packet last week, so you hopefully had some time to review those. And I guess we'll start with Carrie and Kurt in the back. If you two would like to come up and maybe talk a little bit about your updated proposal, I'll go ahead and put it on the screen here. And then, of course, if anybody on the Plan Commission has any questions, by all means, it would be a good time. We'll just, Carrie, if you could just hit the button that looks like a little person's.
Okay.
There you go.
Hi, Kurt and Carrie Tunks at 520 East South Street. We sent in a new proposal for only the 20 by 90 is what we'd like to have. We've been in talks with Aaron about certain things that we would like to see if he does get that property, as far as like the water problems that we see and just needing that extra space for privacy.
Yeah, a buffer zone, a privacy type thing.
And so the preferred option is still the 20 by 90 foot, and the
Yeah,
secondary
that would be
option
the
is
preferred
60.
option.
So very similar to what we talked about at the last meeting,
Yep.
just sort of updated the document to reflect that.
Yep.
Okay. Anything from the Plan Commission? Moments of clarification on this?
I just wanted to tell, I went out to the property and the thing that I noted that it doesn't always show on here is a significant elevation change from the lot to the north to lot to the south. And I did see where the water's been washing out their driveway and some stuff like that. So I just wanted people to be aware of that.
And that's a good point. So on this, this is actually north is to the right, just and the Tunks house is, of course, centered on that particular picture. Thanks, Crystal.
I think it's a good idea. I think it seems to work with both proposals, specifically Aaron's had the 20 feet, if I remember right. He had two options, but the 20 feet. I'm curious if, and I don't think it needs to be added now, but maybe just a verbal agreement or a handshake agreement with whoever does win the proposal, if there could be a cooperation if they needed water or an extension cord. Of course, you could be reimbursed, like you're not donating water or electricity, but just somehow to cooperate in addition to. Yeah, thanks.
Are you referring to just if there was a development that went back farther than that?
The deep part of the development might really benefit from having access. I mean, because right now the water doesn't go all the way there or the.
Yeah, we'd have to figure out, I think as part of the infrastructure plan, there would be a conversation about getting electrical and water and sewer utilities and the proper way to do that. Water especially, we don't want to connect off of the Tunk service line.
No, it's more, I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. Just during the construction, if they're just needing a little just to hose
Oh,
down
okay.
something. No,
Okay.
not
Gotcha, not
just
one.
very minor, you just wish you had a bucket of water and you're in the back and it's not hooked up yet properly.
I think we got it, thanks. Thanks, Tug, and we'll call you back up if we have anything else, okay? Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And then Aaron Parker, would you like to come up and start? I don't see Franz here just yet, so why don't we jump into yours if that works for you? I hate your mic. You just got to turn it on.
You're right. There we go. Hi. I'm Aaron Parker and with Metropelago. Good evening. And I would really like to thank the neighbors and citizens who spoke at the last Planning Commission hearing. Because after listening carefully to the neighbors and other citizens and the elected and appointed officials, we've made some changes to our plan for the property in an attempt to move forward in a way that addresses their concerns. Yeah, can you, next slide, please? Yeah, so thanks again. And, the other thing is that, when you hear multifamily housing or triplex or 8-pack, what do you imagine? I know for sure that I would have reacted exactly the same way without knowing, what would be put there on the property. So I thought that I would try to address some of those issues tonight. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what I want to do is take a few minutes and introduce our practice and then respond to some of the comments about the same at the same time that we review with you the changes to the proposals, and then we'll take questions. Next slide. So yeah, it's I'm an architect and an urban designer, and I'm a senior research fellow at the University of Minnesota. And I wanted to share just two projects that I've done with you for particular reasons for each. I remembered that I gave a lecture about, 30 years ago that was titled A Practice of Service and an Architecture of the Circumstantial. because we try to fit into the place that we're designing and understand not just the geography, but also the people that are there. And then, you know, the forte is design, because design makes a difference. Next slides, please. So this is Lake Superior College in Duluth, which looked like the building on the left. Well, that is the building on the left, is what it was before we were hired to do this. And in conversations with the community college president and the technical college president, and reviewing information about who the students were that were going there, I came to realize that, you know, a lot of the students were single mothers with 2 or 3 kids that had to drop them off at daycare before they came up the hill. They were making like $18,000 a year in today's money, and had to take the bus. They get off the bus, and that's what they're looking at, that building on the left, which probably looked like their high school. And I'm sitting here and going, well, they're getting off the bus and they're looking at this and going, oh my God, I'm going back. What was their experience in high school? And so I thought, whatever we do here, we have to apportion the money in a way that makes sure that when they get off that bus, they can see a different future. And that's what we did, and we brought it in on time and under budget. And that's the main concourse on the right, is what we did there. No, that's good. So we're not talking about putting a school there, but we are talking about putting housing on the property. And I just wanted to go over, because there were some concerns about 8 units. This is a project that I became aware of as a senior research fellow. The houses in this part of Minneapolis, right up at the northern border, were worth about $5,000 in 1998 each. And because of soils and a number of other issues, it didn't make any sense. And we thought, well, why don't we just extend the parkway system up to the end of town? And so I worked on that, the master plan for that. And then developers were asked to submit proposals. And a developer approached me, and I came up with a master plan. There were 4 of us that did it. I think I sent some of you an article by Steve Brandt in the Star Tribune that talks about this process. But I went up and looked at the area and discovered that instead of the sort of front porch model of that is in South Minneapolis, people lived in their side yards and their rear yards here. And so I thought, well, why don't we do something that makes sense up here? And so I took the Charleston side yard house, which is, you know, a decidedly different climate, and redesigned it using a lot of the same principles for a northern climate. And you can see in the middle there, can I? Yeah, that one. But yeah, if you go, there's a courtyard there. If you look at the drawing, at the photograph on the left, you'll see that the viewed from the kitchen, the house to the south, they can't look into your property, so that yard is completely private. And it's, you know, it's pretty small. It's 30 by 30, that square, but the dining and kitchen open out onto that space. And where it narrows down there just a little bit to the south. Yeah, right there. That's the entry court. So you come in and you can go straight ahead up the stairs or to the left into the living room. And it's alley access. So there's a 2-car garage on the back and closing it. And we presented this, and the neighbors unanimously voted for us, and we did this. And you can also see, if you look at how it was finally built at the bottom, every one of those houses, a lot of the plans are similar, but each of the houses looks different. And, we really wanted people to have their own identity and really, come to understand and, really also form a neighborhood. So we have this parkway and a park right across the street and so forth. And that's what we did. Anyway, so both of these projects had to do with engaging the community and really paying attention and learning and going back and forth with the client, with the neighborhood, with the city, and really getting these things to satisfy as many of the issues as we could for the cost we were doing it for. Next slide, please. Okay, so some of the issues that were raised, and I'll kind of talk about some other things. But years ago, I read this book by Giuseppe Lampedusa called The Leopard. And in there, I was kind of stopped by this sentence that he had in there. He said, if you want things to stay as they are, things will have to change. So, next slide. This is Viroqua and its environs. If we continue to build as we have in the past, and we maintain the land use and development regulations that we have now, we will see sprawl development from Reedstown to out beyond Westby. We will see loss of farmland in doing that. We will have less efficient economy and use of land. Just the value of that will, higher taxes due to increased infrastructure costs and worse housing affordability relative to our household budgets because everybody will absolutely need at least 2 cars if they're a 2-income family. So I need to get back to my notes here, I guess. I'm just zooming along here. Anyway. So we need to implement a both-and approach to how and where we live and grow in Viroqua. We need to figure out a desirable strategy to build where we already live with incremental infill development that looks like home. So you're all invited to collaborate. Next slide, please. So again, the property we're talking about is almost 3 times larger than a typical lot in Viroqua, and really can support more than a single-family house. Next slide. Oh, something didn't save. Oh, well, that's good. So as an architect and an urban designer with a vision for how things could be, I kind of got tired of working for developers whose primary goal was maximizing their return on investment. And I decided to try to deliver better homes and better towns and cities by becoming a developer myself. Again, if you sort of imagine what an 8-plex looks like being dumped into a neighborhood, it's not what we want to see on East Avenue. developers refer to units as product, but the people that live in their product view it as home. There's sort of a disconnect there. The slide on the right I wanted to talk about because this is, another example of one of these things. You see where the X is. If you look below the X, you can see those two doors that come from different apartments. There's a Weber on each side of those. And this notion of going out and having a barbecue or letting your kids go outside and run around and play in the parking lot, it just seemed to me to be not a very Viroqua-like thing. Next slide, please. And also, this notion of, so this is a fiveplex on the left and an apartment building on the right. This is kind of what you can expect, because this is the general product that developers are giving us, but we don't have to build that way. Next slide, please. One of the comments that somebody made, in addition to talking about 8 units is too much, one of the most important thing that I heard was that somebody said, we want to know who our neighbors are. We live on this street. We want to know who those people are. And we really took that to heart when, I went, oh yeah, duh. Somebody else said, we want big backyards. But what is it about backyards that we value? The greenery, the quiet, privacy, a sense of solitude or togetherness with family? Can we deliver those same valued characteristics in a more intimate backyard, which is what we've attempted to do with this project? What you see in these photographs is a house with a really small backyard that has a fireplace inside and also another fireplace outside, and the neighbor behind that concrete wall there has no view into this private yard. And we can do really beautiful, intimate, green yards that are private without having a big backyard. Next, please. Yeah, like as I described there. Next. As you remember last time, next slide. We proposed 8 units, which was 7,850 square feet of apartments, organized with 4-plex in the front and 2 sets of duplexes in the back with private outdoor space. Next. And that's what it looks like from the front. The scale and character is it fits in with the community. Next. And so we've made a few revisions. Next slide. Are we here? The big one is, the comment that was made that was really the most compelling. People in Viroqua want to know the people who live on their street. Is what was said, and we agree with that. In light of that comment, we've chosen to develop the property as housing owned as a cooperative. Youth Initiative, Thoreau College, and the Driftless Folk School will be entering into further discussions with us about developing this property as faculty housing and student family housing. One of the reasons Viroqua is so uniquely successful economically and culturally among municipalities of its size is because of its breadth of educational offerings. And indeed, that is the reason why our family moved here. What this slide shows in green is all of the land, all the properties owned by schools here, the Montessori School, the Waldorf School, Youth Initiative, Thoreau College, and the Commons. And East Viroqua is actually already almost an academic campus, and East Avenue really kind of serves as the main street. Maybe that's something that we could pick up and run with, if you will. The thing that's not shown on this map is the number of homes owned by people affiliated with at least one of those institutions. And those people are able to walk there. Next slide, please. Oh, boy, this is jumping around. Anyway, so this is alternative number 2, which is, no, you're good. I probably revised things and forgot about that. Yeah, which is 6,550 square feet and 7 units. On the right-hand side is a 3-bedroom. In order to this one is the 80-foot piece. The Tunks property in this scheme is 20 by 80, and there are 2 1-bedroom units down close to the south property line, and then the 4-plex is all 2-bedroom units. Next. Yeah, can you shrink that down so I can tell what we're looking at here? The stuff in green is what has changed from the initial design. So this one has, you can see down on the lower, the 4-plex has a 3-bedroom, and directly opposite it is another 3-bedroom that mirrors it. And then there are a couple of 2-story 1-bedroom units and a little mini 450 square foot. Yeah, that one there. Yep. So, and that total is 7,950 square feet. Next. This one is also 8 units at 7,500 square feet with 1 accessible 1-story unit. Again, the second from the right. Next scheme. Yeah, and this one is the same 4-plex, but these are all 1-bedroom units. 2 of them are accessible 1-story 1-bedroom units, and the one in the middle is that you see that courtyard with the tree in it. That's an enclosed courtyard associated with the unit directly to the south of it, so that you would walk into the courtyard and then into the house. Because I thought, well, maybe that guy doesn't want to look out the window at the parking lot. So it's like this enclosed courtyard for that 1-bedroom. Next. There we go. So, and this, this just goes back to, this notion of actually making private outdoor space related to private indoor space. All of these are, more serving suggestions like you would see on the cover of a Cheerios box, because good design takes a lot of time and a lot of good communications. And as in our culture, we really aren't quite used to that thinking, because we are in a ready-to-wear, off-the-shelf culture. So we don't really have a lot of sense of how much energy it takes to produce really good design. Next. Yeah, okay. And so, so I'm open to answering any questions you may have.
Thanks, Aaron.
Mhm.
Plan commission members?
Aaron, what are the heights on the buildings in the back?
The back, in the way back,
Back of, yeah.
on the east end of the
Well, I
property.
know the fourplex, we've seen an elevation for
Yeah.
that, but I wondered about the other ones.
Yeah, they won't be higher than that's from the old scheme, right?
No, this is one of the ones you just sent me, Aaron. These are-
Yeah, but I changed it. I mean, I revised the drawing.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to back up to alternative two, none of them will be higher than the one in front. It'll all be the same scale. Some of them are only 1 story high. So yeah. Hmm.
I have a question about parking. I see like 7 spots, but are there more that I just don't? Is there? Oh, there, I didn't see that one. So there's
Yep.
1 car per, got it.
So this was your original proposal, Aaron, and then this was the alternative two.
Right.
Okay.
And that's the 80-foot wide property that, or piece of land that Kurt and Carey instead of 90, and I kind of had to do that in order to get those 2 units in. I could squeeze them down a little bit and make them a bit smaller if needs be to make it 90, but you know, I just, instead of having everything be 90, I thought we would need to have something to talk about.
On your microphone.
Is this number 2?
Yep.
Yeah.
What is the, oh, that's green. Okay, here it wasn't. My 2 looks different.
Yeah, your 2 is different. I redrew it yesterday.
Oh, that's okay. So the hump is just, that green is lawn. Okay, in the
Yeah.
black and white when it printed, I couldn't see what it was.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, personally, I like 2 and 8 the best because you have some much smaller units in those 2. And I think building costs, or I don't think, they are just continually going up, and just to increase the opportunity of have them be maybe less expensive than some of the other designs. Not necessarily affordable, but less than, I think is a good idea. And I like that they're 1 story in the middle. I think that would balance the scale really in a lovely way.
Yeah, and I mean, if in fact these discussions with the schools move forward, and you know, they would be my primary client, but we would be working to make sure that everybody in the neighborhood is. We would try to make everybody in the neighborhood happy. That never happens, but you know, it's and the other thing about this is there is such a need for housing in the city in general, but especially for school faculty, and to have faculty walking distance from these schools reduces the, every car you own, the operations and maintenance alone is $10,000 a year. So that helps the household budget. And I think it's kind of a nice fit that, there are all these schools there, and if we can get some housing, that's why somebody was saying, so you're going to continue to press for 8 units. And the reason that I'm pressing for them is because there's a need. And if we can really make this through, through good design, if we can make this deliver the equivalence of what the kind of housing we want in Viroqua, then I think that's what we do. And if we can't, at the end of the day, if the unit count is the only impediment to the city selecting our team, we're open to negotiating a more acceptable number of units on this property. But, I think, given the need, we should strive to get as many as we can.
Lori has a question.
I had a question on how I know this is a little bit off a topic, but how a cooperative with the school would work so that it doesn't become tax exempt. Because schools are tax exempt. So I just wanted you to say how that would work.
Well, that's a good question, and the schools are tax exempt, and so I think the question is, how does that balance against the value that these educational institutions bring to the city of Viroqua? Is that a reasonable trade-off? And I have not run the numbers on that, but.
I have a follow-up question or related question.
Yeah, I'm just gonna respond to that, but go ahead, Sonia.
Since the city has a housing need, but also a tax need, is it possible, so I'm just throwing out, that it could be this lot after, as it's developed, could be like 3 legal parcels, and potentially that just the one back parcel, just for sake of conversation, is like a Thoreau College or a youth initiative boarding house or something, 8 units, like basically just a bigger house. I'm not saying, I don't get caught up in that function, but it personally, and I think the city really does need some of this to be taxable.
I think these are all really good questions, and I'm certainly not the person to to address them, but I think the fact that that you've raised them, I think that's an important thing that would need to be discussed.
Nate, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, what I was going to point out is, number one, they're great questions, Larry. I appreciate you bringing it up in Sonia's comments as well. Where we're at on this project so far is just talking about what a good project looks like, right? What's the right size, the right type of development? These are things that Chad and I don't excel at as much. And so that's why we wanted to bring it to the Plan Commission, say, like, what is good development? What are our hopes, dreams, visions on this property? Similar to sort of what we did with the Hanson Farm, right? We took that through around and we said, we know what could be there, but what do you want to be there? And this is part of this exercise right now. What we haven't really engaged on yet is the brass tacks of the deal. And that's what Aaron was getting at here, is there's a lot of elements of a deal that make it a good deal or not a good deal or a great deal. And we haven't really ventured into that area yet. And if the city council, this is more of a city council question, thought that tax base was a preeminent concern, then we address that when we talk about the development agreement. There's ways to say, yes, you can go into a lease agreement or a co-op with an entity, but we could write in the development agreement that until a certain period of time, this cannot be a tax exempt property. Like, we could write that in the development agreement and cause or request that a payment in lieu of taxes be issued. So there's all sorts of mechanisms available to us as part of crafting a deal. We just haven't even begun to really talk about, like, what does that deal look like? Because we're still trying to figure out, what do we want? Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, you kind of, I had an opinion, but you kind of beat me to it, I guess. I'll just say it. I think from my chair, I wouldn't be interested in the city selling city-owned property for tax exempt purposes, because we, as much as we need houses, we also need tax base. So I just want to make that position, I guess. And I certainly don't have a vote, but I do have an opinion, and that is,
well,
that
and,
is it.
And we are at the sort of beginning of discussions
Right.
anyway. There's no certainty that that's how it would move forward. But
Right.
in any event,
Right.
this would be a cooperative
Mhm.
a co-op
Mhm.
ownership, whether it's the school or whether we develop it.
Sure. And I the only reason I wanted to say that was just because I don't want you to invest hours and hours of time to come to the city council and have objection to it being a tax exempt property, because I'm not interested, I think, in seeing that but that's just my perspective.
Mhm.
So.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I had a question, for Chief Burrows, because one thing I think about with having units in the back is getting a fire truck in there close enough to put out a fire. We don't want that. And then there's no opportunity for a fire truck to turn around, so the fire truck would have to back out. I just didn't know if you guys had talked about the width of those driveways or where you're at.
No, good question. And, I guess the best way I can put it is there are safety challenges with doing things like this. We've had multiple fires now out in the townships where we've had problems, and that's wide open spaces, but terrible driveways and rough access. And in this situation, it's a long driveway, it's a narrow driveway, and we would have to fight it from the road and, drag lines in and things like that. It can be done, but there are some safety challenges.
From the two things I'll bring up Mayor, did you have something? Go ahead.
Yeah, on that, no, well, it's not really on emergency services, but like just property maintenance question I have when I look at that is that's a long stretch of road. In the event we have a significant snowfall, there's not a lot of places to put the snow. What's the plan for dealing with that kind of event? Because pushing it out into the street creates an additional burden, of course, on the street crews, and that's not an allowable disposal method. So I'm not sure if that's been thought about yet or not. But
There are a number of things that I have thought about along those lines, and I did look at this and say, well, where do you put it? Yeah, I mean, not just snow, but also managing stormwater. And I walk the dogs by here every morning, and I've watched the way stormwater moves. It's a 60 some foot drop from Jefferson down to the cemetery, and the water just sheets off of there. It also sheets down Hillcrest in front of Crystal's house, and you can't walk there with the dogs because you're taking your life in your hands. It freezes. So the stormwater management issue is something that I don't know if this drawing has it, but there are other drawings that actually show the intent to do that. But the water that's going into Carrie and Kurt's basement starts way up at the top of the hill. It's it's not my fault that it's coming across there. So those are all issues that that would need to be addressed as we get into this. I spoke earlier about a ground source heat pump system, which I have since been disabused of, having met with a couple of HVAC people. So and that was something that would have allowed us naturally to regrade the site to do that. But there would be a certain amount of regrading.
Great. Thanks, Aaron.
go ahead. No, I was just gonna say thank you. I don't have anything else.
Okay, so just a couple thoughts. From a zoning aspect, I think it's important to bring this up again. This is in an R2 district. Under an R2 district, and I'm looking at the chief here, but I'm also was pulling up the the zoning ordinance. This would be a conditional use if it met all other conditions, and a conditional use in an R2 is, and if I'm reading this correctly, chief, states that any multiple family dwelling exceeding 4 units, but because they're not the same building, they would require a PUD.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, and I think there's some other things too, like I think backyards are supposed to not be more than 33% occupied. So I mean, 66% of the backyard is supposed to be green space. You know, so there's a lot of little things that are going on. But yes, it's more than one primary structure essentially throws it into a PUD.
So again, I'll just reiterate because I think it's important. It's the zoning doesn't necessarily outright have a problem with the number of units. It's some of those ancillary way that they're configured on the lot that that the zoning doesn't like. To Aaron's point, what he doesn't like is large 8-packs, right? Or 6-packs or whatever you want to call them, that it's just one solid massive building and everybody's doesn't have sort of their own space. And so it is interesting how what the zoning prefers and what Aaron has outlined in his plan are just two completely diametrically opposed things, right? And I think that's important to point out because a lot of the conversation that was had here at the last meeting wasn't necessarily about, oh, there's multiple dwelling units. It was about sheer numbers, right? And to that, if there's any questions about zoning, I can take a pause and answer them, or the chief can answer them, because I think this is a good moment to reflect on that. But I also wanted to bring up some of the concerns from the neighbors that have since been formally submitted at this point.
I did run the numbers on lot coverage and open space, permeable space, all of that stuff, and based on the zoning, and this complies with, and numbers wise, it complies with all of those requirements.
Thanks, Aaron. So then from, it would probably be an appropriate point to bring up the petition that was submitted to the city, the plan commission and the council that was sent to you folks as soon as I received it, I believe on Monday. And if you would like, I can reiterate that here. And essentially it was signed by a number of the neighbors as well as a number of individuals not adjacent to the property or not even in the same part of town really. And it just iterates that a lot of what was spoken at the last meeting, so no surprises there. See if I can find it. I'll go ahead and put it on screen as a document. It just states that the property should not be multifamily housing, and that requests that this property be zoned R1 for a single family home only. Some of the concerns that were indicated were that high density housing can contribute to depreciation of property values surrounding single family homes. There's some citations or some work cited. Furthermore, the introduction of multifamily housing invariably leads to heightened traffic flow and on-street parking. Many working families have 2 or more vehicles, and our quiet, peaceful streets could be compromised as we have to compete with an influx of new residents. This becomes even more of a problem during winter months and could lead to accidents and injuries. And again, citations on that. And then finally, it says we are concerned that allowing high density housing in a single family neighborhood would set a bad precedent and potentially allow the same thing to happen on any vacant lot in the city. We recognize there's a shortage of low cost housing for Baroka, but high density housing in a single family neighborhood is not the answer. And again, it's signed by a number of individuals who are neighbors and a number of individuals who are on the other side of town, and it totals in number, I think, 10 to 12 total signatures. So maybe a little bit more, maybe closer to 15. So with that, we'd be looking for any additional conversation. We do have another proposal that we would need to look at. The third individual, I don't see Franz here unless he's hiding in the back somewhere. Did resubmit his proposal as well, so we can wait to look at his for further conversation, or if you would like to continue the conversation looking at Aaron's proposal, of course, we can swap back and forth and all sorts of things. Does the group have a preference on how we proceed in this discussion?
Why don't you go ahead and show the other one?
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Call you back up if we need you, okay? All right. I'll do my best. Franz is probably perhaps a little easier, and that's probably why he's not here tonight, unless he just simply forgot. But this is the updated proposal. Not a lot of changes to the plans, floor plans, or anything like that. Really, the changes were to the site. So number one, he did connect all the property so that it would consist of a single structure. And that was so as to avoid having to do a PUD. Again, per R2 zoning rules as they sit right now, you can have up to a 4-unit building on a single property. So this would meet that. We have not gone so far as to really tightly consider some of the offsets, but he did do a nice job of noting where there would be some variances required. Chief, I think it's a 10-foot offset of the property versus side yards, and this is only 6'4". So there are some variances that would have to be considered and looked at. Whether those variances are considerable enough so as to require us to go into a PUD is something that we'd have to really consider. But for the whole, this is Franz's updated property. You can see here that he does show the lawn area that he would like to make sure goes to the Tunks, and it's approximately, it looks like at its peak it's 87.2, but I cannot tell if what the distance is on that, to be honest with you. So there is certainly an effort here shown to sort of meet the desire of supporting the neighbor on their request. And I don't know how many questions I can answer besides that without Franz being here.
Do you remember what the square footage was? Was it 1,200? Do you remember what he said before? Anybody?
I don't remember.
Oh, I can.
That's not that important, but. The reason for my question is thinking about the tax revenue of both, the potential tax revenue of both projects.
Yeah, I think that's certainly a consideration, Sonia. I think that both, from my angle, both properties, if they remained non-tax exempt, would be wins for the city of getting those tax bases on there. I think either or would be pretty significant. I think just from a numbers version, Aaron's would be maybe a little bit more, but until we have the city assessor actually look at materials and all sorts of other things, I wouldn't be able to off the cuff that. So I guess at this point, I'll leave it open to general thoughts, conversation, discussions about any sort of direction that you can provide to the chief and I as we work with these proposals about what right size looks like, what this property can call for, everything you've heard in the last 2 meetings. Again, the chief and I are just looking for general direction. And then from there, we can start hopefully putting together possible MOUs or start doing the actual effort of crafting a deal, right? Right now, we're just looking at what an appropriate development in this piece of property would be.
Any thoughts?
Well, yeah, this is Crystal, and I think the thing that I've been looking for is something that fits in with the scale of the neighborhood. And it's hard to tell, but I think they both do. Aaron's for sure does. I mean, when you looked at the front from the street view, you couldn't tell that that was a fourplex. And that I thought was a plus. Not sure about the other one because I can't see it in scale with anything else, but That's, I mean, if you looked at that, you wouldn't realize that that was a fourplex. And I think that's a huge thing. As far as what we're trying to move forward with is how can we provide multiple units of housing for people without impacting the neighborhoods? I'm not sure about, I have concerns safety wise about those back lots being served by police and fire, especially fire. But I mean, I think it looks good, I think.
What looks good, Crystal?
Well, I mean, the development in general, I'm still not convinced that the number is good. I like what he's done with the courtyards and private spaces. You know, having a bigger yard myself and a deck that's out there, I mean, the whole neighborhood can enjoy what you're enjoying. And I think that's really a plus for houses in an urban area. So, I don't know, does that help?
Well, thanks, Crystal. And I'll echo Crystal in just my review of it. Both developments do try to create a green space for each property, right? To have like a secluded green space and do something to that effect. While they're not big backyards, they're trying to offer a scaled down version of that.
One of the things I like about the more dense one from Aaron is that there are some really small units. You know, like the petition proposal, for example, to have a single building on that block. I mean, that just shuts out that sort of living in that part of town experience to a whole lot of people. This actually opens it up to more, to be able to be in that sort of, you know, that part of town where it has that feel, that kind of older 20s house kind of feel. Being able to get into that because it's a smaller unit, I think that's a big plus personally. I also think it sort of offsets the concern about the number of parking because especially if someone can work out with a school, a really small place in that complex is less likely to need a car. Whereas, you know, more larger family units in there, almost, at least it offsets it to me. Like higher density in this doesn't strike me as necessarily a negative for neighborhood traffic and all that. I think it actually opens up a really lovely new opportunity for the kinds of places people can live in town.
I echo your sentiments exactly. And to me, it seems like there's even more green space in Aaron's, but it's maybe not. But the massing of the other proposal, it was a lot of roof and it was a lot of black, but it doesn't have to be black. But to me, even the darkness, and I know I'm just being sensitive to taste, and some people don't like my bright house, so you know there's no win, right? But to me, Aaron's proposal fits the neighborhood better, provides more opportunity, and possibly, but I understand also you might need the numbers for, sometimes you need more buildings to make all the numbers work, but possibly that back unit is just another one of these 600, one of the smaller one-story units. And then also Aaron's proposal has an easier snow management because you could push the snow to the end, the very end into that grass. Whereas the other proposal, there's nowhere to push the snow. Franz's, but Franz could probably amend that. You know, maybe he could make his unit smaller, that last one, so there is a place for snow.
One thing I do like about Franz's proposal is that it seems like it's more, it's easier to like install solar and have charging for EVs, and especially with looking forward, it just would be nice to have that option in the property, in my estimation, especially the solar, just to lower the cost. But I'm an EV fan, and those carports, at least it's a little more apparently easy to have a plug-in spot for them. I know there's safety concerns on the flip side of that, but at least they're outside. Just something to think about. I would like to see that.
when you said the word easy, I thought you were going to say something else. So just to share, Franz's looks easier, faster to build. So just logistically. And then on your comment about the EVs, and the solar access, I'm sure that Aaron would design that in. So I would have no doubt, but that's a nice reminder to have that as an option for either one.
I think looking at the two proposals, I think the Aaron's proposal has more dimension to it, which might help it not feel as intrusive in the neighborhood. Whereas this one being one, one bigger building makes it a little more. Just too big long wall, I think would make it feel a little more boxed in for the neighbors. I don't have a problem with either one of them, but it's a unique lot and it's going to take a unique approach to something more than just what easily fits there, right? So I think from my opinion, Aaron's, and I do have some concern, the same concerns that everybody's brought up, but I think, as this project moves forward, I know Aaron will look into those and share that perspective. But if I had to pick between one or the other right now, I think Aaron's proposal just gives it a softer feel, doesn't feel as intrusive.
Massive?
Yeah.
On the finance side, I know you said you could work out that later, but Aaron could probably run some general numbers of like square foot, like what if it was a similar amount of square foot as Franz, for example, that was taxable, and then maybe there's just one building. So I feel like there could be a workable solution. Yeah, and co-ops are not necessarily tax exempt. It's just a co-op tied to a school is, because there's a lot of cooperative houses that are not tax exempt, like in New York. That's very common. It's just not common here.
So, we heard from Aaron kind of where he's leaning. I think we've heard from both David and Sonia where they're leaning. Crystal, I don't know if I got a lean from you on this one yet.
Well, yeah, and I think I looked at the big brown building and I think, if it was a different color, it could be a whole different ballgame, but it just appears so massive. And I don't know what the building materials are either. That was the other thing, because it kind of looked like in some of the things that it could be like steel siding or something, because I know that's real trendy right now. And we have had a couple people in our neighborhood put up some sheds that were that material, and it really doesn't fit with what's there. So I look at that and I just don't know the materials that he was planning to use, but I'm probably leaning towards Aaron's for the reasons that there's a lot more flexibility there than there appears to be with Franz's. And I think the other people stated it just better than I did. I mean, there's individual room for families to have places to go to be together. They can meet out in the parking lot by the thing there and maybe have a barbecue with everybody. I just want to see places where people can live and be happy. And I don't know, I think that looks like it because of the way it's arranged.
Thanks, Crystal. Richard? I see you down there.
I'm okay with Franz's too, and I apologize. I missed the last meeting so that there would be some questions that I would have that were probably discussed last time. So, but Franz's or Aaron's is acceptable.
So, thanks, Richard. So, Aaron has when I talked to him about this, and Aaron, I don't know if you want to come back up to the mic and say this for yourself, but I asked Aaron specifically, I'm like, okay, you submitted these alternatives. Which one are you recommending? And I think what I heard you say, Aaron, is that, well, I offered alternative 2, which cuts a unit. right? That one's specifically the only one that goes from 8 down to 7. The other ones are just different configurations and of 8 total units still. And I said, okay, well, which one are you pushing? And as he said early days, like, well, I'm still pressing for 8, but then you said something with regards to which of the 8, right? And I don't know if you want to take a second to reiterate that now. You got to turn on your mic, Aaron.
Thank you. Yeah, there were 3 reasons that I didn't want to state a preference, because I kind of don't have one. The first is that I trust that I can redesign my least favorite of these to be much better than the ones that I favor more, because we're kind of right at the beginning of this process. And as I was saying, you know, it's a pret-a-porter culture, but this is all custom design. And, you know, you're custom designing so that you can satisfy, you know, the greatest number of people, starting obviously with the client. But, you know, as I said, my practice is about the community as well. The second reason is that if the schools and I move forward with faculty and student housing, their needs and desires take precedent over my own preferences anyway. So, you know, that makes the one I like best kind of moot. And the third is that one of the primary tenets of my practice has always been that the work I do has to fit into the neighborhood, the city, and the culture to which it should be a part. And I view the community as my client as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's basically the reason that my firm is called Metropelago is because it's a contraction of Metropolitan Archipelago, which posits the notion that that private property is individual islands in the middle of a sea of public realm, and one can't exist without the other.
Got a question or comment too. How do we, there's people that signed this petition that looked like they were real close to that. So how do we treat that?
Well, the individuals who put the petition were really great. They contacted me and said, hey, what's the proper way to advocate? And I said, yep, you know, go ahead and do what you'd like. A petition's fine. If you want to do public comment like you did last time, by all means, come and advocate. But they don't have direct property rights, right? But they're here to say, this is what we want as the closest impacted neighbors who live next to this on a day-to-day basis. And so really what I'm saying is you just have to weigh it as part of your decision. And how you weigh it is your prerogative as a member of the Planning Commission. I don't know if that helps, Richard, or even answered your question, but if you want me to take another stab at it, okay.
No, and I've been thinking about that, and I've been looking at both the petitions and identifying where the property owners, of course, that have signed it are, and then trying to consider, in at least my own opinion, which ones would be the most impacted, and that would be ones that are directly connected, right? So the Tunks, the house on the corner there, and I had that up. You know, the only backyard that backs up to this property is the Tunks's. The other ones are side yards. So the corner house there, that's their side yard, and then on the back side, that's an extra deep lot. So their backyard extends like a lot and a half past that. And then the house to the north, it's owned by Thoreau College. So I don't know. I haven't spoke to anybody from that organization to know exactly their opinion, but I would assume based on what we're hearing, they're not opposed to it. So the other folks that are concerned about it, which in my opinion are certainly valid concerns, right? As a neighborhood, is increased traffic on the street and that sort of thing. So from my perspective, I'm most concerned that the neighbors that are directly impacted in terms of a quality of life of sitting in their back patio, being able to enjoy the evening, are comfortable with the project, right? And I gathered from, but I'm certainly gonna follow up with Kurt and Carrie, but it seems like there's been a mutually agreed upon, hey, if we can do this, that gives us a buffer, we're comfortable with it. It puts me a lot more at ease about the neighborhood concerns, right? And one thing I think we see more and more here is if you would have given me this chunk of land and said, hey, draw what you think would go on it, I could have tried a million times and I never would have came up with this. Because it's different than what me growing up, I was raised a block south of that particular lot. So I like you have walked past it thousands of times in my life, and I know the run off issues. My family owned what is now the Montessori school, which is where all that water went. So from a neighborhood perspective, I understand people's hesitation because it's not anything we in Viroqua that have never experienced living anywhere else have ever experienced. But I appreciate how you've come at it because it really does try to fit there, right? And I think from a density perspective and all kinds of reasons, I think we need to be a little bit willing to step out of what is comfortable for folks that have never seen anything different to see something that is different work here, right? Because there is an appetite for that. So that's, I guess, my perspective as we sit here and we talk through this and look at it. It's a very unique project, and I have to say good work on trying to put something together that really does take into account the neighbors' perspectives and which I certainly didn't expect anything less.
At the last meeting, Richard, the Thoreau College, who resides just north, were very for it. They weren't just willing, they were, they spent a long time saying, we welcome this very much.
Yeah, and they end up with the most hardscape directly attached to them. Right? I mean, that's the driveway directly attaches to their lot line, whereas the rest of them have trees, bushes, some sort of a barrier fence. So it softens it up on the other neighbors. So if they're not opposed to it, I have a hard time. People's opinions are certainly valid on the petitions, but.
And if I could just point something out that kind of came to my mind, if you look at this, there's a rectangle up there. If you slice the rectangle through laterally, you've got two lots. If you count the number or the shapes of the buildings on the lots down on the bottom, which are two put together, I mean, you've got a house, two houses and two garages. And the mass, if you look, is very similar to what's in the lot right above it. And that really helped me visually to see that, because it's not really what makes it more dense is that the buildings are turned, there's patios, there's some landscaping. I mean, the other ones, a lot of them are quite wide open, but the building masses are very similar. Thank you.
Yeah. I think what's really interesting is that, and just giving voice to the folks who sort of raised their hand and said, I'm not in favor of this, is it's not even so much about the style of building, the character of the building, the amount of building. It's really about the density of people. I think that's what the concern is. It's I don't know my neighbors because there's too many of them over there, or with that many people brings that much more on-street parking. With that many more people comes that much more traffic, right? I don't think it's ever been about the design, which is interesting because I think I would echo the mayor's sentiments about the effort in the design, Aaron. It's about number of people. Like, it went from being the old hospital. I don't know if you can give us history on that. Before it went into a dilapidated state, what was its highest use?
Like number of units?
Yeah, just like how many people were in there and out of there. Like, just give us historically give us a frame of reference. Like, when the hospital was up, what were, I guess, the number of people living out of that building as best as you can remember? Or if somebody else,
Known or unknown?
There was a lot of in and out.
It
It
was-
was a very busy property. I
It
think.
was probably at least 6 or 8 units in there. Probably 12 to 14 people at certain times, you know, well, yeah,
It wasn't all necessarily residents, right? Like it was a lot of coming and
a
going.
lot of coming and going.
Vehicles, it wasn't very sightly, right? So the other part of this is it really transforms something that was just absolutely terrible for a long period of time into something that might help encourage more of that. I know some of the neighbors in the neighborhood take great pride in their properties and their lawns and their aesthetics, and to have another neighbor that does that, I think might help encourage more of that, and that just makes it a more pleasing place to be, even though there's more cars. I live on a single family home and there's no less than 8 cars in front of my house any night of the week because my kids have friends who have come over. And I mean, I'm sure my neighbors don't love that either, but and they're all teenagers, so it's terrible. But realistically, I mean, you can have increased traffic volume in a single family home based on who's living there and what's going on there. So.
Right. Yeah, and I think that, and I'm just trying to put myself in the mindset of some of the neighbors and the individuals who signed the petition. I think there's probably a little bit of a fear because of what it used to be, for that exact reason of that high density and the fact that the property was, I think, for all intents and purposes, mismanaged. Right. I think it's concerned about getting back to there, especially since so many people have been pleased that it was addressed by the city and they're thankful for that. They're just worried about the concept of change, and is it going to be good change or is it bad change? And I think that's just, that's also part of the reason why we as a city decide who we go into business with, meaning who are we dealing with when we sell these properties, and what assurances do we have that it's not going to 10 years down the road become another problem property, right? So those are all things that we can kind of look at. The development agreement, that's part of the reason why we vet developers when we meet with them, and go into business with them for development purposes. So it sounds like for the most part, this plan commission's sort of direction to myself and the chief at this point is to pursue the higher density model. I would like to ask explicitly, is there a final say on number of units? Just because that has been sort of the point of contention on this particular project.
I like 7. I like the drawing with 7 in it. And I think that gives maybe a sense of compromise, right? It's not a ton, but it's giving up something to get to something. And I think 7's better than 8 in that particular setting. I like how it lays better. That's just my opinion.
I get the leaning towards 7,
Sorry.
but honestly, my thoughts earlier about one of the things I like about it is it gives more variety of families opportunity to live in this area. I actually think that 8 one does that better, because that one that's so small, there's just nothing like that. If you just go with the 7, then that back unit is just bigger. I mean, it's not a huge thing, but if you're asking me to pick, I still think I would prefer the variety that comes with the 8 personally.
One thing to think about, David, is, and this is kind of what Aaron alluded to, is that there's some flexibility in the design. These are concept plans at this point, and there's going to be a design process. And one of the things that conceivably could happen then is he could do 7 units with including some of those smaller units that they like. So we're not making a final decision. It has to be this exact plan or this exact plan or this exact plan. I think Aaron can take that feedback and melt plans together so that he gets sort of the best of both worlds on it. But Mayor kind of alluded to 7. I think you're comfortable with 8 is what I heard from you, David.
Kind of conceptually I do, but I'd be fine with 7 also. Yeah.
I prefer 8, but to me, it's all about having what David said, more smaller options. So making that 8th unit maybe a little smaller, that one in the far back.
Richard?
Crystal?
Oh, sorry. Step out over you.
That's okay. I'm okay with 7. I do think, I look at the 8 and I think that's probably maybe 1 or 2 more people. It's probably more the vehicles that we get into with the additional unit as well. So I think 7 is more comfortable for me as well.
So are you wanting a formal recommendation, Nate, or are you what?
If you would like to make a formal vote, that's great. I think what I've heard from you is that we're leaning, this group, at least the individuals here are saying like, we would like to see 7, right? That folks could get comfortable with 8, although there's just some concerns about how big those units necessarily are, but I think that should be enough to go on, but you know, sometimes I just look to Lori like as the
Right. What
person
would
who
you
knows
like,
what the
Lori?
rules are. Lori, in this situation, given what you've heard, would you recommend a formal vote, or is, I don't know, I guess maybe I'm just trying to include you in the conversation.
We're probably early enough. We don't have to vote.
I don't
but-
really think you need to. I think you guys are the ones we're asking for direction, and it's going to be coming back anyway.
Yep.
So I don't think you need to really make a formal vote.
Okay.
Unless you want to.
I like that. Thanks, Larry. Is everybody good with this discussion? If so, we'll move on. All right. Thank you, everybody. We're going to move on to item number 8, which is period for public comment. Any members of the public that are here that wish to make a comment, now would be the time. Is there anybody online? Oh, okay.
Hi, Cindy, 542 West Maple Street. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to make a comment about the petition, just bring to your attention the second and third page. If you notice, with Prairie Lane and Birchwood, those are Bethel Home Independent Housing, which are PUDs themselves. So I was very surprised to see them sign that petition because they're living in a closer with a narrower street and more confined living. So I'm just very surprised that they signed it. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And I
Thanks,
like
Cindy.
Aaron's thing too.
Thanks.
Yeah, can I speak? I'm a neighbor.
Sure. Please say your name and your address, and we're trying to keep them to 3 minutes or less.
Okay, my name is David Crone. I own the property directly across the street from the lot you're talking about. I and a number of neighbors in the area, as well as other people in the community, have signed the petition that we object to high density housing in that area. We had high density before that apartment, or that old hospital, when it was turned into an apartment building. I think it had 3, possibly 4 apartments at one time, but towards the end of its life, there was maybe 1 apartment. The police were over there 2 or 3 times a week for drug problems. We've had traffic that you can't hardly navigate at times during that period. So what we are proposing is to make that a single family housing unit over there, and to look at the parking issues on the proposals that have been offered this evening. Most families have at least 2 cars, and if they have teenage kids, there could be 3 or more cars. And we feel like they'll end up parking on the street, and makes it difficult to navigate, particularly in the winter. But the question I'd like to ask each of the members of the Plan Commission and the City Council and the City Administrator is, if a storm came through your neighborhood and took out 1 or 2 houses, or a fire of some sort, would you welcome this kind of a proposal to rebuild in your neighborhood? And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, David. Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Krista Brown. I live at 703 Connor Street. Although I would like to live there. So I took some notes. I am an interior designer by trade and practice, but I also don't discriminate between insides and outsides of walls to be an in and an out of a place. And I look at these solutions being offered and think we are so lucky that that's being proposed here, because that's just outdoor living. Those are pocket parks. That's life. That's human design, not car design. And I feel like, I guess what I'm saying is I fully support this high density solution, because so I came last night to city council, because as a design professional in our city, and I've designed in Madison, I've worked at commercial firms, residential, et cetera. As a city right now, we're challenged with being a really great place to live. And we have a housing problem. You are very aware of it. And as a design professional, the problem that we're running up against a lot right now is that we're seeing people coming in and building a new house, but by resurrecting an existing structure. So they're buying something that has been prolonged in its maintenance for too long and only remodeled at small percentages so that it never has to draw a permit. And then it's sold by a realtor who has a grand vision and they price it really high. And that person who buys it, whether they came in with cash or not, raise the price of that property, which is great for taxes, but it makes for a very challenging housing market, both for people who want to buy here, but people who want to rent here. How do you also then put the money in to fix it? Because now you're fixing 20 to 30 years of problems that didn't get fixed. And this solution is transparently what it is. There are so many houses in our city that are housing this many people without you knowing it, not safely. There are too many cars that don't have a place to be. Those are big challenges. And I live over west on Broadway and north near Chicago. And we have the same problems that I just heard another citizen, I think his name was David, maybe I'm wrong, I'm sorry if I'm wrong, echoing like, but the design solution is mostly an issue because it's designed for a car. It's not walkable. This is a house for somebody who maybe doesn't even have a car. They don't want to have a car. They want to walk everywhere. This is giving people opportunity that they want. So I'm definitely supportive of this solution. I think that the proposal by my colleague Erin is a great one because it's making human designed spaces, not car designed spaces. It's not going to feel like a wall in the middle of that block. Personally, I actually explored putting in a proposal for this and was playing with the same kind of tapestry of separate housing. And when I tried to combine it, thinking as from a cost per square foot perspective, that's actually when I left the project idea, because I thought that's going to be oppressive. That's going to feel very out of place, whether or not it solves it or not. So anyways, I also want to say I echo what I said last night, so as a designer, I can only do as well as I can do if all the people and all the pieces of the puzzle are at the table as soon as possible. Bring I don't care if it broke. I don't care if it's, you put it through the washing machine, you put that puzzle piece out here, because we can solve problems. We can make good solutions if all the clients show up and they hold their boundaries. So I really encourage the city, this committee, the council, to define maybe not a number of units, but saying we have to be able to get a fire truck back there. What does it mean? We want to see a tax base of X. What does that mean? And what's our option B? Holding your scope of the work so that this design team, whichever you decide on, can do their job and what they're really good at, because their customer, whoever's going to buy it, or the schools, they're going to own their piece of it. So try not to be too open-ended. be specific about what the city wants and needs, hold that position, because I also feel so encouraged to see this happening in a rural place in Wisconsin. That is impactful. We are going to have more and more and more housing issues as people understand that they need to choose where they live based on climate and water, and we need to be ready for these kinds of things. So that's my encouragement.
Thank
to
you. I don't
you.
mean to cut you off, but
Yep,
we
no worries.
went over on
Yep,
time. So
no
thank
worries.
you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi again, everybody. It's kind of dangerous. I don't know what I'm going to say. So, inspired by Aaron's design. He's a colleague of mine.
We all know you, but can you please say your name
yes,
for those
Gregory
online?
Splinter on West Decker.
Thank
Here in the area for 25 years, in Viroqua for 13th now. If I get a vote, it's Aaron's with 8. I don't know. I just has a feel for it for the reasons that Krista described so beautifully. This is a human-centered design, and so is Franz's as well. There just seems to be a little bit more character, I guess one would say, to Aaron's design. So I'd be leaning toward that as my single vote. And I guess on the front of my mind, I don't have 3 minutes. I have more than 3 minutes, right? On the front of my mind is that I'm so inspired by this process and everybody chiming in on these qualitative aspects. I mean, I feel as if I've gone to church and, saw really had a really great church or something like that. And if we can, and what was going through my head when all this was going on, along with being present to the designs themselves, is that I started fantasizing. I go, what would happen if we had this process in other aspects of building and reimagining Viroqua? And at risk of whatever, my mind went to the VDA. And I was just contrasting my experience of sitting into multiple meetings at the VDA and coming here and being part of this process. And it is night and day. Night and day. I mean, that's just my own personal opinion. Hopefully, Nate, you kind of get what I'm talking about here. What would happen if at the VDA level, when bigger things are brought into consideration, this is a relatively spirited yet small project. But if you're developing 23 acres of land and you subtract the qualitative communication of heart-centered design, at that point, how can that process be as enriching as this was tonight? And I have to say as well, for the development on Broadway in Maine, this was a completely different qualitative process that we had here tonight than what we experienced, in my opinion, for these larger development projects. And if we were able to bring these design minds, I'm a designer, of course. Aaron, Krista, we've devoted our lives to this. It's just a different way. It's a different way of handling these situations, these experiences. So I guess my 3 minutes are up. So thanks again for the spirited design. I stand behind it, 100% support. And if we were able to bring this back into these larger aspects and designs, I know it's a shakeup. I know it's a different way of looking at things, but I think it could be really enriching for the rest of the city. Thanks.
Thanks, Gregory. Anybody else? No? Anybody else online? Oh, Kurt's coming.
Yeah, just hit the guy.
Here we go. Kurt Tunks, 520 East South Street. Aaron's design right here, when he gets it done, you'll drive by and you won't even know it's there. You're never going to see it. It's awesome, the way he designed it. The other one, it's going to look like a military station out in the middle, right in the middle of town. All black, concrete, asphalt, no trees. Drive by this 100 times, you'll never even know it's there. That's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thanks, Kurt. Anybody else? Hearing none, I would move item number 9 is adjourned.
This is Crystal. I'll move that we adjourn.
I'll second. This is Richard.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Battery.
Crystal,
Okay.
you guys can leave the batteries in for now.